Hi everybody, this is Dr. Cook. In this video, I would like to give you some pointers about how to write an effective paper. Some of the things that I saw in the last paper, or in the first one that you did, was that in general, a lot of people were missing good thesis statements, a good introduction. There were many issues with paragraphing and paragraph structure, with the topic sentence and concluding sentence. And there were multiple problems with the MLA. So in this video, I'm going to give you a sample paper and kind of walk you through some of the things that you should and you shouldn't do in paper number 2. Before I go into some further detail about the paper, I would like to go over some of the basics. The first thing that you want to pay attention to is there should be no first person or second person in the paper. That means you should not use the word I or you anywhere in the paper, with one exception. The exception could be in your introduction and the attention getter. The next thing to pay close attention to is that you use 3 outside sources. So if you look at the guidelines for this paper, there are 3 outside sources required for this particular paper. Now, when I say outside sources, I actually mean that you need to look for sources that will support your thesis statement. So when you're looking up sources on the internet, or rather on the database, you need to make sure that you're searching by your thesis and by your topic. Don't search for the poem in general. Some things that people did that really weren't good in the last paper: a lot of people found student papers written about the short stories that analyze them. Keep in mind that these are not credible sources in the sense that they're not peer-reviewed, they aren't published on the database, and really anybody could be writing about it. So you don't know the credentials of the people. Sometimes these are thesis papers for a degree, but you really don't know that the paper was good enough to obtain the degree. So please avoid this. Really only use the database. So let me walk you now through some paragraph structure issues, talk about MLA a little bit, thesis statements, introductions, and topic sentences and concluding sentences. So I'm going to use an actual student paper to show you some of the proper things to do. So let's look at MLA first. And a lot of you were missing some of these aspects. So you want to make sure, even though I've already talked about it, I've given you samples, you have the MLA handbook, yet these mistakes were still for many of you on your papers. One thing you have to have is a header. Now, the header, you have to use the insert button. So insert whatever version of Word you have. And in the header, you need to have your last name and the page number. Now, in order for the page number to be proper, and I'll show you quickly how to do this, you take the insert button, and wherever it is on your particular version of Word, you want to insert the page number, choose the right, top, and make sure, in this case for MLA, we show the number on the first page, and then hit OK. In front of your page number, you're going then to type in your last name. So we're going to use the name student because that's this particular student's last name, and hit close. If you do insert, you will notice on every page you will have the last name and the page number. Some of you had wrong page numbers. Some of you didn't have it in the header. Some of you didn't have page numbers at all. Some people had page numbers and not their last name. There were all sorts of combinations. But we want to make sure on every page you have your last name and the page number. The very last page of your paper is the Works Cited page, and it needs to be called Works Cited. Some people had variations of this and didn't have the proper. This is MLA. MLA says Works Cited. The entire paper, from the top, from the header, throughout the whole paper, must be Times New Roman 12 font. Again, there were numerous people who had various fonts that weren't Times New Roman 12. These are what Warwick considers major errors, and this will get you zeros in MLA formatting. So, again, you have your header. You close out of the header. The very top of the paper here, you have your first and last name. Then you should have my name. Please spell my name correctly. Some people didn't spell Cook correctly. Some people didn't spell Mark correctly. You don't need Mark. You can say Professor Cook, Dr. Cook, whatever you prefer, but please make sure it's spelled correctly. Then you have the name of the actual course, and then you have your date, and the date is always written day, month, and year. The entire paper is double-spaced. If you have a title, and you really should come up with a clever title for your paper, your title goes on the next line, and then you hit return. Again, everything is double-spaced. So let me show you. A lot of people had more than double space because Word doesn't do this automatically. If you highlight everything and right-click, go to paragraph. You want to make sure that where it says before and after, both of these are set at 0 point. You also want to make sure the line spacing is set at double. Word will automatically have it at 8 point, and that will be larger than double space. So make sure both of those are set at 0 and your line spacing is set double. When you start your paper, and when you start any paragraph in your paper, you're going to use the tab button. Don't count the number of spaces. There were some people who just maybe did 2 spaces, or you had some very weird spacing. Simply hit tab. It's already set up automatically for you. Every new paragraph should be indented. That's part of paragraph structure, and that's part of good writing. Let's go to the Works Cited page, and I want to point out a couple things on the Works Cited page. This one was done, I had a couple mistakes in it. So, a Works Cited page is always in alphabetical order, and we see here that this particular student did not have it in alphabetical order. Cox actually should be at the top. When you have 2 stories by the same author, you also want to go then by alphabetical order of the work. So the diamond necklace really should come before the jewelry. Remember, you are citing works from the Norton Anthology. You are not citing Mays, because Mays did not write the works that you are actually covering in your paper. So you want to put the name of the author, or in this case, for paper number 2, the name of the poet. This is the proper way to do it. You have the author or the poet's name in parentheses or in quotation marks with the period on the inside. You have the name of the work. The Norton Introduction to Literature, that's the name of the actual book. Period. Edited by Kelly J. Mays. comma, shorter 12th edition, period, comma, W.W. Norton. You can just call it Norton if you want, comma, 2017, comma, pages 655 to 661. That's the proper citation for citing a work from the anthology. This was actually given to you in week 3, and I've been doing it all along in the course if you look at starting all the way back to week 1. The other thing to notice is you have to have what's called a hanging indent. The first line was on the out. There are a number of people who actually indented the first line, and then this second line came out. That can't happen. This has to be a hanging indent. And Word will do this for you and format it for you easily. You simply highlight it, right-click, go to paragraph, and then in this case, see, this person didn't do it. You're going to choose hanging. And then that will automatically, and what will happen is when you hit the return button, it would automatically go on the next line and give you a new hanging indent. So that's the advantage of if you make this a hanging indent from the very beginning. Lastly, you want to make sure that everything is double spaced. There should be no extra spaces in between the works. So, alphabetical order, works cited. Make sure you do the proper citation for the anthology. Make sure you use the proper citations for anything that you get from the database. If you get it from the database, a requirement is to actually put the accessed, where you access it. The access date. That's required. If you also get any other articles from the database, you also want to use the access date. Obviously, for the book, you don't use an access date, but anything that is an online source. You really shouldn't be using an encyclopedia. Encyclopedias are not scholarly and not peer-reviewed. So try to avoid using encyclopedias. In the next part of this video, I would like to address introductory paragraphs and paragraph structure. So a good introductory paragraph always begins with some kind of attention getter. So a lot of you just actually began the paper itself, but you want to have something to capture the attention of the reader. So if you look in this particular paragraph, we have this sentence. Over recorded history, many an author have put ink to paper or word processor to tell a good story. All right, so this is an attention getter because it kind of makes us wonder what's going to happen next, where this person is going in the paper. After you've done some kind of attention getter, and the attention getter could be a quote, it could be a statistic, it could be something like this, you then want to give some kind of information leading and background about the actual topic. Of the many, there are a few that stand out as masters of short stories. Some even call Guy de Maupassant the father of the modern short story. Two of his short stories, The Jewelry and the Diamond Necklace, go hand in hand, perfectly illustrating the author's cynical tone in the then popular French realism style that shows the dangers of trying to be something. All right, so we have an attention getter. We now give a little bit of background of information. We're going to talk about the author Guy de Maupassant, and then we are going to address, or this person is going to address, two of the short stories. To conclude your introductory paragraph, you do need a good thesis statement. And some of you did not have a thesis statement at all in your paper, and that's problematic because without a thesis statement, we don't know where you are going and what the actual paper is going to cover. The thesis statement should always come as the last sentence of your paragraph. These, de Maupassant short stories contain characters that are unsatisfied with their lives and long for a life of luxury and are willing to lie and be deceitful regardless of the consequences for them, and others just for life of glamour. In the end, it's the author's disdain for society that becomes apparent. So, in this paper, we're going to compare two short stories. We're going to show how the author does not like society. And in addition, we're going to then look at how the characters are unsatisfied with their lives and long for a life of luxury. You don't have to do it this way, but a thesis should be what you plan on proving. In other words, it's your claim. What claim are you making about the story? Then usually you outline the claim with some evidence. So in this case, we're showing the stories are similar because of their disdain for society, that's shown by the author for each, that the characters are unsatisfied and long for life. So generally we give like 3 or 4 reasons, and these 3 or 4 reasons are what you're going to then cover in the actual paper. So then moving on to the first paragraph. Both the jewelry and the diamond necklace are centered around women who were discontent with their lives and longed for more. Well, in our thesis statement, being unsatisfied or not content with the life, that is the first prong of our thesis. And we want to begin and cover everything in the paper in the order in which it is covered in the thesis. This is a great topic sentence. It is a very general sentence. We know now that this entire paragraph is going to be about showing how in both the jewelry and the diamond necklace, women were discontent with their lives and longed for more. So here we have the jewelry first being written about, and then we have the diamond necklace. Now these two paragraphs actually could be combined since it is the same topic, but because there are 2 different works, this person chose to have 2 separate paragraphs. Well, let's pretend it's just one. The very last sentence needs to refer back to your topic sentence and should mirror what you have in your thesis. So let's review. We again are talking about women who are discontent with their lives and long for more. Well, the very last sentence says, it is plainly obvious that these 2 characters were full of discontent. So not only does that sentence reflect our sentence here, which is the topic sentence, which is like a sandwich. You know, you have your top piece of bread and the bottom piece of bread holding everything together. But it also then reflects the thesis statement. One thing you also want to do when you're going from one paragraph to the next is that you want to work on transitions. A very simple way to come with a transition is, however you ended the previous paragraph, you want to pick up on that language in the next paragraph while also then introducing the next topic. So we ended with discontent. Now this person's going to transition by saying discontent and longing can be a dangerous mixture. And what he is now going to do is talk about how this was bad for both of the works. When we get to the end, again, others did as well, collateral damage, showing how these are bad, which then refers back to the topic sentence. So I really want you to look at good topic sentences. Topic sentences need to be broad. They need to be about what the paragraph is about. They have to really reflect what's going on in the paragraph, and some of you did not do that. And I pointed that out in my feedback to work on your topic or topic sentence, and that some of your sentences were not good. Also concentrate on transitions. These are all part of your grade. And so you need to have good topic sentences, you need to have good concluding sentences, and you have to have transitions in between paragraphs in order to, have a better grade on your paper. I also want to point out proper way to do citations. So when you are citing from the text, you should have some kind of introductory statement. Now, this doesn't have it. This one begins with the quote. So I would probably lead up to that and then lead into the quote. In any case, after you're done, you need to have the name of the author. There is no punctuation whatsoever. Okay, and then you need to have the page number. Now remember, for this paper, we're actually citing poetry. And for poetry, you don't use page numbers, you use the actual line numbers. And I gave you some information about this. However, there were a number of people who, in their proposals and the pre-writing, you actually wrote page numbers. And I wrote on your feedback to make sure that you include line numbers. This is really important that you do look at the feedback that I give you, because I do take time to try to help you as much as possible. When it is clear that something is coming out of the text, so we know the author's name here, we do not need the author's name in the back. So here we just had a quote. We didn't really have the author's name, even though we do know. So you have to have the author's name here. When you introduce it with the author, you don't need the author's name. You simply use the page number. And it truly does not matter whether you use direct quotes or indirect quotes. Anything that is not your idea, you need to cite the source. And in MLA, it means you have to have the author's name and you do need a page number, regardless of whether or not it's directly word for word from the text. Please always put the page number, because that gives me, as an instructor, the opportunity to go back to your original sources and see where you may have paraphrased it, or that you may not have paraphrased things quite enough. So I hope this video gives you a little bit more clarity in how to write a good paper. Again, make sure you do and use proper MLA formatting. You can review this video, go back to it, look at the handbook that you have, come up with a catchy title. Definitely work on the introductory paragraph with some kind of attention getter, then background information, and ending with a thesis. And in your thesis, maybe giving 3 reasons to support what you're going to actually use to prove your claim. Cover each of the points that you are making in the order in which they're covered in your thesis. In between paragraphs, you want to have transitions. Each paragraph should have a broad topic sentence as to what the entire paragraph is about. At the end of the paragraph, you need to have a good concluding sentence that refers back to the topic sentence, and then possibly transitions into the very next topic. Or you begin the next paragraph by referring back to the previous one. If you need other help, other resources, I can provide you with them. Again, the Writing Center is open, and I really suggest some of you utilize the Writing Center. I will be on Monday and Wednesday at the normal times, 9 to 10, should you wish to get some kind of help from me. You can also make an appointment with me for other hours. Again, it has to work out then between both of us, because I'm not on every day. All right, well, good luck with writing the next paper. Remember, if you have it in by noon on Monday, I'm we'll look it over for you, specifically your introductory paragraphs.